I was thinking during the week that this must have been the first time since Pat Spillane was a player that he wasn't involved in the Sunday game as Kerry win an All-Ireland. Is that true?
Do you know, it's only when you say it, Conan, you're spot on. The last time Kerry won the All-Ireland was in 2022, and that was my last day on the Sunday game. So I was on the Sunday game from 1991 to 2022. So any Kerry victories in between, I was on. And then, of course, the previous victories, 75 to 86, I was there as a player. Yeah. So then going back before 75, the last victories they had before 75 was 69 and 70. And believe it or not, my uncle Jackie Lyne was the manager of Kerry in 69 and 70. So I was sort of he used to bring me to, my father was dead, and my uncle Jackie used to bring me to some of the matches. So really, it's a long time that I wasn't in some ways, at some role. And even going back even further, when Kerry lost, my father was involved as a selector in 1964. So, yeah, it was unusual. It was unusual to be sitting as a spectator watching Kerry win. And people will say, well, what am I like as a spectator? I'm not one for roaring, screeching, giving out, or whatever like that. I like to sit down quietly, take notes on the game, and just watch the game unfold. And if Kerry win, great, I'd say well done. And if Kerry lose, and I move on.
Would you get off your seat at any stage, with a goal?
No, don't do that. No, don't do any roaring, screeching or anything like that. Very rarely.
Nothing a referee or anything. I'm bad with referees now.
No,
yourself.
Don't. Honestly, I did, as a player, I was king of that, ranting. and maybe, no, I'm not. And yes, there was a phase when I was on the sideline. I was the worst case. But I think with age, you're mellow. And over the last 20 years, I just really don't say a word. I don't like talking during the game. I like roaring or screeching. So anyway.
And then just finally on that, was there anything that you, after the game, did it feel like you had something to get out? Because normally you'd be going live and you'd get to talk. But was that a bit of a strange one for you?
Not really, no. We all went down, all the Spillane family, I think there was about 30 of us. We gathered outside a pub in Dublin, and we had a good hours. And I went back to the hotel at 8:30 and watched the news and watched a bit of the Sunday game and drove down to Kerry on Monday morning. We had a great day last Wednesday then. On last Wednesday, Jack O'Connor and the Kerry players brought the Sam Maguire to Timplenoe, to Spillane's bar, and we had a lovely day. And for 3 hours, the players mingled with the supporters, signed autographs, took photographs, and their memories and Timplenoe is a little small club. We don't have a village. Yeah. We struggle at underage level to field teams. We have to amalgamate. So, for us, for our little club, Timplenoe, last Sunday week meant it was, the 25th All-Ireland medal, senior football medal, to come to our little club. And we're very proud of it. So it was a great day. And people say, well, 39th, do you celebrate less? No, the satisfaction and the enjoyment never dims. And like I said, just mingling outside in the bar last Wednesday, they're special memories. And it just shows how important sport is in lifting the spirits of a county and uniting the people of a county. And it was a good day. It's a special day. And it'll live long in my memory. So anyway, it was very enjoyable.
That is great. And do you think, was that deliberate? Did the players pick a load of different places to go during the week?
In Kerry, the tradition is that it's obviously Killarney and Tralee on the Monday night. Tuesday night is the home of the captain, and perhaps a couple of more days after that. So unfortunately, due to the sad death of one of the Dr. Crokes players, Jamie Doolan, Dr. Crokes, who had the captain in Gavin White, couldn't have a homecoming. So Tralee was Monday night, Killarney was Monday night. On Tuesday, they went back to Dingle because you had Paul Gainey, you had Tom Sullivan, you had Dylan Gainey, Conor Gainey, Barry Dan. So they went back to Dingle on the Tuesday night, and they came to Timplenoe and Kenmare on Wednesday, because obviously with Timplenoe we have two lads, Tig Morley and Killian, and then into Kenmare that night, where there was 3,000 or 4,000 people, and you had celebrating Shawnee O'Shea and Donald O'Sullivan. And then Friday they finish up on the Friday after All Ireland. There's always traditionally the manager's home place, so the team went to Drummond, to Jack O'Connor's home club, and celebration. And after Friday, the show's off the road and all the lads are starting playing championship. The club championship starts on Friday night, next Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. So split season, do they get a rest? They had a week off, they were back training. I know Shawnee O'Shea yesterday on Monday was training with Kinmare, and I'm sure knowing Shawnee, he was training with Kinmare as well over the weekend, but he did a training session with Kinmare yesterday and did his gym session later on. So that's the dedication, that's what the show goes on.
And what's the word on Jack O'Connor ahead of club championship? Is he staying on?
I spent an hour with him on Wednesday. We had a long chat, a couple of drinks. He was very relaxed. And I didn't broach the subject of... my gut feeling, I think he'll stay on. I didn't ask him, he didn't say, and there's no indication whether he will stay on. The big problem I see is that if Jack goes, his management team goes, and bearing in mind that this management team, he only assembled this year. So I'd say Jack would feel, I think, two things: a loyalty to that management team to stay on, because then they'll stay on with him. That's number one. And I know there's always a temptation to keep on, and we know in sport getting the last hurrah right is always usually a failure.
Yes.
But I would think Jack, Jack can retire now. He's the third most successful manager in the history of Gaelic football with 5 All-Ireland titles. He can retire and he owes nothing to Kerry football, and he deserves all the credit he gets. But there's a nice ring if you could manage Kerry to their 40th All-Ireland senior football title. So my gut feeling he'll stay on, but there's no indication, yeah or nay.
Manage to the 40th, and you could equal Jim Gavin. Can maybe take over Jim Gavin if he stays on as well. He could be him and Miku as the two most successful managers ever, and that would be nice. Not that he needs to do anything to, I suppose, improve his reputation. We've had a lot of emails after your dissection of Jim McGuinness's big game record the last day after the All-Ireland final. People keen to point out 2012, the Mayo game counts, the Kerry game in the quarter-final counts, 2014, the Dublin match counts, and of course, Pat, what counts more than anything, 5 Ulster finals. Have you had much correspondence yourself on that?
Conan, I've been at this business of being a commentator on GAA affairs for 34 years. I started writing with the Sunday World in October 1991. I haven't missed a Sunday since October 1991. That's 34 years. I did 30 years on Sunday Game, and now I'm with the podcast. I give an opinion on the GAA. It's subjective. It's my own opinion, but I like to give my opinion based on evidence. I hold my hand up. If I'm backing up an opinion with evidence, well, then so be it. So I am not responsible for example, the headlines. Spillane takes swipe at Ulster GAA. Spillane lashes out at... That's not in my vocabulary. Spillane goes full on with criticism of Jim McGuinness. I'm not responsible for headline writers. I just merely pointed out, first of all, as regards the Ulster GAA commentators, and it was a tongue-in-cheek remark, but I pointed out that they tend to be cheerleaders for Ulster GAA team, and that's fair enough. In Kerry, people of Kerry think I'm anti-Kerry. People outside of Kerry think I'm pro-Kerry. So work that out. So, right, it was a tongue-in-cheek comment at Ulster GAA, who are cheerleaders, but you find a lot of cheerleaders. I look at horse racing on TV, I look at rugby on TV, and they're cheerleaders for their sports. There's no balanced or critical analysis. And I just felt, like with the Ulster GAA commentators, there was an element of groupthink where they all went for Kerry and they couldn't see, or all went for Donegal and couldn't see. That's fine. Then that brings me to Jimmy McGuinness. Look, the bottom line with Jimmy McGuinness is an unbelievable manager. I didn't build him up as the greatest manager of all time. The media, in lots of cases, have built up Jimmy McGuinness. Do you know, I sometimes you just wonder their different values. I remember being at a function in Tyrone one day, and Peter Canavan was on, and and they referred to Peter as up in Tyrone as God. So God came up to speak, and Peter, and I was speaking after. I said, it's gas. I said, he called Peter God in Tyrone. Peter has 3 All-Ireland medals. I said, I have 8 All-Ireland medals. And in Kerry, they called me a bollock. So different standards. So, and Jimmy, look, the bottom line is, and I've said it before 100 times here, the winners get to write the history. And unfortunately, and I've said it, we talked about the hurling final 2 weeks ago, and we said, what can the hero at 3:30 can be I wouldn't say the villain, but can be the fall guy, or can be the person, one of the people responsible for defeat at 5 o'clock. And I'll tell you this, if Kerry lost last Sunday week, Jack O'Connor and the players would have got one hell of a roasting. Why? Because people would have said, and rightly so, and I would have said, that this team have underperformed. And it was interesting. I read an interview with David Clifford where he said, he was thinking about it during the winter, and he said, you know, I'm at this inter-county for 6 or 7 years, and I've only one All-Ireland medal to show for it. And he realised, like, for his talent and for the team, one All-Ireland medal was underachievement. So what they achieved last week was brilliant, and they got all the praise they deserved. Unfortunately, like I said, and in the case, like I said, the winners get to write the history. The biro is in Kerry's hands, so they write the history. So when my simple job as an analyst, and I'm not trying to dig out of a hole or whatever like that. I mean, the easiest thing is for somebody to write an article or go on a podcast criticising what I say. That's about the laziest piece of journalism or opinion you could do. If I could spend my life writing articles about contradicting the opinion of everyone else, and I could give you an article every week on it. But so I give an opinion. My opinion, like Donegal had a bad day at the office, right? And Jimmy, the Donegal players, majority of Donegal players had a bad day at the office, and Jim McGuinness had a bad day at the office. That's reality. I'm not making things up. I'm not in the business of fiction. We can deal in revisionism and talk about where Jimmy brought Donegal from, and he brought Donegal from nowhere to being contenders. Absolute. So but I'm not dealing with revisionism. I'm not a history teacher. I don't want. I'm dealing with a match last Sunday week. A team won it. Why did they win it? And I explain why Kerry won it. And I'm dealing with a team that lost the game, Donegal, and I'm giving the reasons why Donegal lost. And one of the reasons was that Jimmy had a bad day at the office. And forget about his past record and forget about revisionism, but he had a bad day at the office. He's been in 3 All-Ireland finals. And in 2 of those 3 All-Ireland finals, he's lost. But what's galling from, I'm sure, Jimmy's point of view and from Donegal support's point of view, that in those 2 losses, 2014 against Kerry and again last Sunday week against Kerry, that Donegal produced very flat, lethargic performances. Donegal didn't produce the performances that you know they could deliver. So that's reality. Jimmy will be hurting, no different than Donegal players and Donegal supporters. But Jimmy rewrote the GAA tactics book. Jimmy is an innovative, thinking outside the box coach. And one of the things about this year, which you must remember, is that the new rules, really, the coaches didn't have time with the new rules. The new rules were introduced. They were just before the league, and they were hit the ground running, and they were evolving. You know, tactics were being made up on the hoof because they didn't know. And you can remember a lot of counties were really adapting to that extra player up front in the goalie, and they were making hay while the sun shines. And then they got rid of the goalie and couldn't allow him up beyond the halfway line unless there was another 4 back. But like Jack O'Connor alluded to that fact that Kerry, if you can remember, during the league, didn't score many 2-pointers. Yeah. And Jack said it wasn't until after the league, when they went to their training camp in Portugal, that they worked on 2-pointers. And you can see, look, Charlie Shea ended up with 15 2-pointers. David Clifford ended up with 14 2-pointers in the championship. So Jimmy will be hurting, no doubt about it. But Jimmy is a coach, and Jimmy is a sharp, innovative coach. Jimmy is a deep thinker of the game. Now, the likes of the Jimmys of this world and other coaches, the Malachy O'Rourke's and Kieran McGuinness and everyone else around, whoever will be in Dublin, they'll be looking at this new game and saying, right, what tactics are suitable for this game? And we know, if you were said 3 months ago, 4 months ago, the kick out now will be very important. Then battle for midfield will be important. Oh, and you know what players we'll need now? We'll need the big, strong Mulliker of a midfield, who under the old rules was obsolete. We'll need the groundhog player to pick up the breaking ball, and we'll need a traditional man marker. Like, we wouldn't have known that 5 months ago. The game is evolving, tactics are evolving. Jimmy had a bad day at the office. Am I writing off Donegal for All-Ireland next year? Absolutely not. Will Jimmy bounce back? Of course he will. But sometimes I don't write the headlines. He had a bad day at the office, and simple as, and I make no apologies for, we would have given the same criticism to Jack if they had lost. So please, 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 social media warriors, I see two in particular in my own county, and I go on all the forums just for the fun of it. And there's two guys who over the years, they persistently have a go at me. It doesn't matter what. And I'm sort of saying, and I know, I sort of know who the two boys are now. And that one is not living in the county, one lives in the south of the county, one lives outside the county. And you're sort of saying, did I take their girlfriend off them at a disco some night? Did I spill drink on them? Did I hit him a bad belt? Because these boys are so obsessed with having a part of me. So look, it doesn't bother me. I give an opinion. I back it up with evidence. If people agree with me, great. If people don't agree with me, so be it.
Yeah, would you not get the keyboard out yourself, Pat, and start bashing back at them on social media?
I have no interest at all. I have no interest. I give an opinion. I remember Declan McGuinness, and Declan McGuinness has often been criticised of how of getting rid of the celebrity pundits. But I remember one thing he did say to us. He said, if you give an opinion, he says, as long as you back up that opinion with evidence, then I'll stand by you. And I will give an opinion. I will back it up with evidence. And I need answer no more. So end of.
Lovely. You touched on something there. Cathal Kane had actually said that it feels like the championship at the minute is like the 90s, the start of the 90s, where anybody could win it. Now, if we're thinking about next year, and if you're thinking about passing the Biro over, like obviously at the start of this year, we were talking about 7-8 teams that completely narrowed. Kerry became by far the outstanding team. What do you see next year? Like, do you see that opportunity for teams?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I see, right, so Kerry will always be there. You take each count, Kerry will always be. Cork should have beaten Kerry in the Munster semi-final. And I think they've unearthed a few young players, and I think they're an improving team. So Cork, but they need to get out of Division 2. Galway are a sleeping giant, because to be perfectly honest, I would have said, hand on heart, that Galway were the team most suited to the new rules in terms of physicality, athleticism, skillful forwards. They had everything. That hard-running middle third player, everything. And they have underperformed, and they've underperformed on the big days, which they are a sleeping giant. Pádraig Joyce will probably stay on, but I just believe, we talk about that grain of rice, I just believe they need... When Armagh won the All-Ireland, they got the grain of rice. The missing piece of their jigsaw was Conor Gilligan. They brought Conor Gilligan in, and seemingly his forte was speed and transition, and they won the All-Ireland. I think Galway need that Conor Gilligan, need that missing piece of a jigsaw, need something extra into the coaching thing. Mayo are obviously the sleeping giant. Who they'll get, but will they be All-Ireland contenders? Of course they will be. A lot will depend on the management. The word at the moment is they're looking towards Ulster. Everyone looks towards Ulster for these gurus. I would have said, my hand on heart, the guy who I respect as a coach, respected as a manager, would lead him. I think Andy Morton is a genius. I think just he's one of the most innovative and best coaches in the game. But it looks like, it's got to be the faraway fields of greener approach in Mayo, and they might look outside. So, but Mayo and Galway, Roscommon are the disappointment, and I think Roscommon, and they're looking for a new manager, could be a struggle. But you look at Meath came from nowhere to be contenders. They will improve again under Robbie Brennan. Dublin will be there or thereabouts all the time. Kildare, now that they're in the Sam Maguire, Kildare are a sleeping giant with lots of talent coming through from under 20 level. Good young talent. There's potential in them. And up in Ulster, Armagh, take your pick. Armagh will be there or thereabouts next year. I genuinely believe Paddy Tally had really steadied the ship in Derry, and Derry by the end of the year were a serious team. Now, under Kieran Meena, they're All-Ireland contenders, Derry. Donegal will always be All-Ireland contenders. So that's, and Down, who were a revelation last year, I think they're really, Conor Laverty has them buzzing well. So that's, off the top of my head, that's 10 teams you could say they're in with a chance of winning the All-Ireland.
That's almost my favourite question. Like, which Ulster team is the biggest threat to Kerry next year?
Well, they all are. because you take Derry, you take Armagh, you take Donegal in particular, those three, they have the physicality and the athleticism and the footballing skills. Like, the one thing about Armagh, right, when you really dissect it now, and let's put this, like, people say, I'm a Kerry supporter, I'm Kerry media. I tipped Armagh to beat Kerry in the All-Ireland. I genuinely thought Armagh were the most impressive team in the championship. I really did. And I thought they had the players for the new game, but he had discovered a lot of good young players, and he had introduced them to the team, and they had got used to. And they had a bad 15 minutes at the office, and that 15 minutes at the office cost them the game. So Armagh, Donegal, and Derry will be serious championship contenders. That's the brilliance of this year's championship. Like I said, of this year's championship, and again next year's championship. It's for the first time ever. We're talking about 7, 8, anything up to 10 counties that can say we have a chance of winning, Sam. And if you said, like you said, that Meath would be in an All-Ireland semi-final this year, you'd have said, you're off your rocker.
Yeah. One thing, and I touched on it earlier, Kerry obviously have the players, the manager, they have the mindset as well for the new rules. Like, they're designed to reward attacking. If you're thinking attacking, the new rules will suit you a bit more. So I think teams need to get their heads around that. They need to get their heads around the fact that they're going to concede more, but they just need to keep thinking about how can we score more.
Yeah, one of the problems you have, you see, with the new rules is that if players have been so embedded with a system, a particular system or a particular process, it's very hard overnight. And these players are used to losing possession, retreat back into blanket defence, zonal marking, doodle-doo. It's very hard overnight to change the mindset, because the mindset in the old game of football, the mindset was defend, safety first, keep possession, hand pass. The mindset in the new game, as Kerry showed, is that you move the ball quickly, you get the ball into attack, and you pick holes in the space of zonal defence. So, look, we know the zonal defence, and I saw Philly McMahon saying, right, that the fellas who say zonal defence is obsolete, is gone, is rubbish. He had half a point. The zonal defensive system, as it stands at present, as implied by Armagh or as implied by Donegal in the final, where it is very rigid and very set. I mean, you take Armagh in the quarter final, where they set up very deep with their zonal defence, and the lads outside made hay while the sun shines. Donegal set up. So you'll have to get rid of that mindset, but it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. I mean, we talked lately about the stats about hand passing, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, like, the one thing I would have said under the new rules is going to encourage more kicking, and the frightening thing is that this year's All-Ireland final threw up 481 hand passes, which was 31 more than last year, and the ratio of hand passing to kick passing is increasing, double, triple. So, but why is there more hand passing? One of the reasons that encourages more hand passing is still the zonal marking. Team sitting deep, not prepared to engage, not prepared to man mark, and that means the team outside the arc, outside at the 45, can just play the ball over and back, and they're waiting for the opportunity. I mean, the stat from the All-Ireland final, what was it? 2 minutes and 3 seconds, 21 passes, and Kerry get David Clifford on the ball to, like. Why was that facilitated? That was facilitated by Dublin, by the Donegal players not prepared to come out and engage. So it'll be interesting to see, like, yes, some sort of hybrid zonal system has to be used, but the man marker has to be there now, and you're going to have to engage much higher up. You're going to have to man mark, and that will change the dynamic of the game, I think, and perhaps maybe restrict the amount of hand passes, but it's certainly an area that I know when Jim Gavin goes looking at, he'll certainly be looking at that area in terms of curtailing the number of hand passes. I think he'll certainly have to. I think there was only this year in all the championship matches between provincial, All-Ireland and Tailteann Cup, the number of goals was only 7 more than last year. And you'd have expected, given all the space and 3 versus 3 up front, that there'd be more goals. But of course, the reward for goals isn't really great. I think to get more goals, to encourage more risk taking, you've got to reward a goal with 4 points. So there are some of the things they'll be looking at. It'll be interesting to see what will come up. We don't want to overdo the rules, and we're doing well. But there is certainly 1 or 2 tweaks. Getting rid of the 2-point free is one. Increasing the value of the goal, and certainly something around the hand passing, whether it is restricting the number of hand passes in the sand in that game they had last week, the sandpit trial game. It was you had to kick after every hand pass. I'm not too sure is that the idea. It'll be interesting, but there is a need for tweaking.
Yeah, that's
what's going to happen when you look at it. Like over the winter, this next year it'll be more because you'll get a better idea of what sort of game is it going to become, because the coaches, the innovative managers now will have 6 months to figure out this new rules and expect maybe a different type of game next year, a different approach and an evolution of tactics.
Yeah, I think it is early days, and I think they'll look at that final, like Jim Gavin and the boys, and they'll almost use it like they won't want a team like Kerry to have to do that every game. You'd have to run the ball, but they might look at it and think, look, they've shown the weaknesses, they've exposed the zonal marking, so maybe teams now over the months will push out, but they have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and I know, it's been something that I've always said over the years, and it's a quote that's been often highlighted, is that the game is called football for a reason. And I've always said we need to get the foot back into football. And while we have we have a game that everyone loves now. The players love it, the supporters. Everyone has fallen in love with the game of Gaelic football. But that's not to say it's the finished article yet. But that's also not to say that we need to do a lot of tweaking. I'm not too sure, a little bit. But like the stat from the All-Ireland final, in terms of kicking the ball, right? I'll maybe you know the stat. How many Kerry players in the All-Ireland football final never kicked the ball, never kicked past the ball?
I don't know, actually. Let me know.
3 Kerry players never kicked past the ball. Mark O'Shea, Dylan Casey, and Jason Foley. They never kicked the ball. Never kicked past the ball once, right? And here's a further one. Sean O'Brien kicked the ball at goal and scored a point once. Joe O'Connor had 2 shots at goal. Had 2 shots. One a wide, one a goal. So that was 3 shots at goal by the 2 boys. They never kicked past the ball either. So technically speaking, 5 Kerry players in the All-Ireland final never kicked past the ball.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. So, I mean, it puts paid to the notion, like, that people think, Kerry are the traditionalists, they play catch and kick football. Kerry, and again it goes back to what I said, Kerry will play what's in front of you. Kerry will adapt to anything. So if catch and kick is on, Jesus, they can put a kick pass into it. But if it's not on, Kerry are just as bad or just as good, or whatever way you want to put it, as stringing 6 million hand passes together. And of course they will, if the other team don't bother engaging and are stuck in a rigid zonal defensive system.
Looking back over the season, like which of those rules that we're talking about there do you think has had the biggest impact? So even if you can break it down into, there's the solo and go, the 3 up, the 2-pointer, the kick-out's obviously a huge change. And one of the ones, like, obviously there's loads of rules, but these are sort of the standout ones that have had the biggest.
I think the first one, not in any particular order, discipline descent. The punishment is too harsh to take you up 50 metres. But in terms of discipline and defence, I mean, this year in the championship, there was only 4 players sent off. And 2 of those players were sent off in the same game, Kerry Cork, Sean Brady and Paddy Clifford. Last year, there was 12 players sent off. So in terms of discipline, in terms of dissent, and I see it at club level as well, refereeing has got easier because players are disciplined and are not dissenting. That's number one. I think of all the rules, probably the kick out being forced long and making it, because you've got rid of the controllables. And now you're left with 50-50 a lot of time, and there's a contest. And in the original rules, when Gaelic football were devised, one of the key aims was kicking the ball, but the other, man-to-man contest. And that created man-to-man and it put a bit of uncertainty into it. I mean, like, all we were watching in the end was, like, last year, a kick out, one team retreats all the way back, short kick out, the other team bring it up. So I think the kick outs was absolutely brilliant, the contested kick outs, because it made the game a lottery. It took away the controllables, and it was a bit chaotic, but people like chaos in a game. People don't want to see controlled, choreographed teams and players. So the kick out, the solo and go, brilliant. Yeah, not used as much. The 2-pointer, brilliant, a reward for a great skill. I'm amazed the advanced mark, which is a gimme score.
It's unbelievable.
But wasn't used at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say the number of advanced marks scored in the entire championship, 99 games, wouldn't equate to 15, I'd say. So off the top of my head, you've caught me all right there. The kick out, the descent rule, the solo and go, the 2-point. Geez, I like a lot of them. I do. I don't know. I've been an opponent. I think I've been a supporter of these new rules from day one, because we needed a change. And yes, it's not the finished article, but there's a danger we might over egg the omelette, and we might overcook it, and we might dress it up too much, or try to be all things to all men. But at the moment, it's going in the right direction. And like I said, Jim Gavin's aim was to make Gaelic football the most attractive amateur game in the world to play and watch. And, geez, they've got a long way there.
Yeah, I agree. And if you were to implement one thing next year, because you're saying you don't want to do too much, slight tweaks, if you could pick one thing now to improve it for 2026, what would you do?
I'd like to encourage more kicking.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to encourage more kicking. Now, whether that means, A, you restrict the number of hand passes, you restrict players playing across the halfway line. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see more kicking, because with more kicking, kick passing is a skill, but with more kicking, you're taking away that element. Now, the danger is that, right, you say, right, you'll restrict the hand passes, right, we'll restrict the number of hand passes, but the danger is, if teams aren't prepared to engage, if teams aren't prepared to push out, all that's going to happen outside, the same thing is going to happen, only that fellas will be kick passing 2 yards to each other.
Yeah.
So it's, if there's one thing I want to eliminate, which is brilliant. I want to eliminate the team being able to run down the clock and easily keep possession for 5 hours. I think, was it in the Leinster final? Off the top of my head, did Louth keep possession for 7 minutes and 20 seconds or something like that? Was it before half-time? At some stretch, as far as I know. But you don't want to see teams just playing it over and back, to side, fellas soloing on the spot. We don't want to see that.
And isn't it hard? Because, like, say if you brought a shot clock in, you're almost encouraging teams to play zonal, because they have to shoot, we'll just sit back. Or if you did the 3 hand passes and then a kick pass, they have to kick, we'll sit back. So it's trying to think of a way to draw those defenders out to create space to kick, but without rewarding the defenders for sitting in.
I agree totally with you, Conan. There's a lot of things to bring into the equation to work out, and that'll be, and no better brains than Jim Gavin and Eamon Fitzmaurice and all those boys. But look, we were happy, but of course we're never happy. You're always never. But then let's not pretend that the ideal game exists, the Shangri-La game exists. It doesn't. I mean, we do know, and it has been a great championship, and we'll talk about it maybe in weeks to come. And I haven't really got into analysing in depth the entire championship yet. But I mean, off the top of my head, you'll have to say the quarterfinals and the semi-finals and the final weren't great. They were one-sided. They were disappointing games. So while the earlier rounds of the qualifiers and the provincial gave us some top matches, the latter stages of the championship weren't as competitive and as good as probably we might have expected. But that's maybe it's nitpicking, and maybe we're contrary, which we are anyway. But look, it's been so the bottom line is. I am not responsible for headlines. I'm not responsible for creating, driving the boot or critical. I merely point out why teams win and why teams lose. And at the end of the day, look, Donegal and Kerry, the final itself, while it was disappointing, the atmosphere, and because Donegal people are a bit like Kerry people, they're You know, and I was actually writing about it for next Sundance in the World, and it's quite an interesting thing, but it's some topic we'll have to deal with in future. In 2014, the last time Kerry and Donegal played, the most brilliant tourist initiative in this country was launched in 2014. That was the Wild Atlantic Way, which linked Donegal all the way along the western seaboard to Cork. It was a brilliant initiative because it highlighted the beautiful region that is the Wild Atlantic Way, and it brought tourists to hitherto unknown, beautiful locations. And it was a success. But the bottom line is, I was involved in this rural business for a few years, and it was frustrating because people weren't working with you. But you look at the Wild Atlantic Way, and if you look at it in the cold light of day, it's a beautiful route. Spectacular. And some towns are doing very well. Some villages are doing very well. But not a lot of towns and villages are not doing well. Tourism is seasonal. People, towns and villages are dying away. Services are being closed down. Shops are being closed down. Post offices, pubs, churches. We had 2 churches in Timpano. None of them are open anymore. I mean, that's Timpano. We don't have a church to go to every Sunday. So, like, the bottom line is, and the key, and I always say, the canary in the coal mine, the barometer for rural Ireland is the GAA club. And you look at a lot of the GAA clubs from Mallinhead all the way down over towards Errishead, Belmullet, over back into West Connemara, West Clare, West Kerry, South Kerry here, over to West Cork. GAA clubs in these regions along the Wild Atlantic Way are struggling due to depopulation, due to lack of numbers. So a Wild Atlantic Way was a brilliant initiative. But I'm telling you this is a fact, that if it's 11 years again before Kerry and Donegal play in an All-Ireland final, a lot of GAA clubs that are struggling at the moment along that Wild Atlantic Way, struggling to field teams, unless we come together and work out a plan, a lot of those clubs will not be in existence in 11 years' time. And that's the sad reality.
Can we just unpick that just for another minute? Because it's very interesting. What would you go about doing? Because I remember that ad. It was brilliant. It was Kerry were going to play Donegal, and they had the line going through.
It's beautiful.
I still remember the voiceover. It was like, "This is football, the Wild Atlantic Way," and it was like, "Wow, this is great stuff." And 2 of my favourite counties. I think they're the 2 most beautiful counties in Ireland.
Stunning.
What would you do for that depopulation, or the clubs to save them?
It has to be about people. And this is what's forgotten about. A landscape must be a living, breathing landscape. And by living, breathing, landscapes must have people. And there's a danger that a lot of our landscapes along the Western Seaway, along the Wild Atlantic Way, that a lot of our landscapes in years to come will be no different than national parks, where tourists will drive through, see beautiful scenery, and no towns, no villages, and no one living there. Abandoned schools, abandoned guard stations, whatever like that. It's about people. It's about getting people into the area. That's the key. It's about people. And any plan. Look, I did it. I was a rural ambassador, and I remember one time, I went into it with wild-eyed and bushy, and I'm going to help out rural Ireland. I live in rural Ireland. I love rural Ireland. I'm proud of rural Ireland. And I remember going into being ambassador for rural Ireland, and I said, "This is great. I'm going to change the world." I was naive and innocent. I was swallowed up. And I remember going to the first meeting of all the various stakeholders, whether it is tourism, business, farming, all the various stakeholders, county councils, everything. And I remember coming away just so frustrated and so down, and because I went to the minister at the time, Phil Hogan, and I said, "This is terrible." And I said, I come from a sporting background where if I go into a dressing room and everyone is wearing a blue jersey, I know they're with me, they're playing with my team. When I said to Minister Hogan, I went into that dressing room and there's no one playing with my team. There's no one playing as a team. And he said, and he summed them up. He says, "They're Gaelic fullbacks." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He says, "They're only protecting their own patch." And until such time as all the stakeholders of rural Ireland, including the government, the powers that be, come together and come up with a plan, I'm telling you this, we're going to witness the death of a lot of beautiful parts of rural Ireland, and the end of GAA clubs and a lot of those areas. We need a plan. I was involved with the GAA, and I chaired an initiative involving with rural, and we actually I presented to the management committee in Croke Park this plan, and the plan was, and it would take me a long time to explain, but basically the general gist was that for a club to create 10 jobs within a club area. The plan was passed. It's still gathering dust in Croke Park. So lads, between Croke Park, get it out. Maybe Jarlath or someone might find the file. There's a plan there for GAA clubs to create 10 clubs within their club area for the GAA and the government. All the stakeholders work together. But otherwise, there'll be a lot of clubs in Kerry and Donegal in the next Ireland and they won't be there.
Pat, that's great stuff. Let's do a separate show on that. It sounds like it's definitely.
Look, Conan, I was involved in that, and unfortunately, I was outspoken, which doesn't help, as you know. I was outspoken. I fell on the wrong side of a lot of people, and when you fall inside of powerful people in authority and political authority, and it was frustrating. Would I ever get involved again? It would take a lot of persuading. But those peripheral areas of rural land, those beautiful parts of Donegal, of Mayo, of Sligo, of Kerry, of Clare, of Cork, some of those areas are dying and they need saving. They need a plan and they need action. And it's about people. It's nice to have lovely roads linking them, lovely viewing points and lovely towns. But if the towns and the villages have no people and no services and no shops, they're museum pieces. They're just, you may as well be driving through a film set.
Thanks a million for your time, Pat. Thanks a million for listening.
Pleasure.
And we will be back again next week.
Did I apologise to the Ulster people and Jimmy?
I think he did a good enough job there. I think he did a good
thanks.
Job.
Mea culpa.
We appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you. See you later.
Good luck.